concerns possession or application for a registry identification card does not constitute probable cause of reasonable suspicion, nor may it be used to support the search of the person or property of the person possessing. That kind of bothers me a little bit. I mean, just because you go out and get a card, you have some pretty substantial violation, and nobody can even come search the property.
Well, I think it's more of the terminology is in there because there will be a registry that law enforcement just doesn't go down that registry list and, you know, use that as a way to intimidate patients. But again,
I think it ought to be qualified frivolous. I mean, I see what you're trying to get at, but this leads to just no searches at all, because you could say it's.
well, if another word would make that clear, I'm very open to that.
And then on page 26, the same kind of concern about line 9, paragraph E, a nonprofit compassion center is subject to reasonable inspection by the department, and the department shall give reasonable notice. Well, number one, who's going to find reasonable, is there some legal
As under case law, is pretty clear. I mean, to the judges and to a law enforcement person, reasonable time is given depending on individual cases. And Chris, I'm sorry, you may be better versed than I am.
I just got some questions along the line of Mr. McMillan. I'll let him finish.
What is reasonable?
It depends on
circumstances, isn't that correct?
There's so many different circumstances regarding search and seizure. What reasonable means in one situation, depending on the context of the search, it could be different for a home, property, car. So it just depends on the context of what your activity is.
Depends on whether they're searching my property or your property.
I mean, no,
but it's well established under case law.
What's reasonable if you're in a car in a neighborhood that's got drug activity, that's reasonable there, but it wouldn't be reasonable in an area where it's not.
As the judge says, you know reasonable when you see reasonable.
Well,
I know you don't like that, but
let's let Mr. McMillan conclude.
I just had one other question. This is putting a lot of burden on the public health department. Is anybody here representing that department? You tell us they prepare to do all of this and lean budget here?
Mr. McMillan, I can tell you what the fiscal note is for the department. Based on the numbers that we've looked at, it would cost the department about $300,000 a year in personnel costs. Right now, it looks like, and I looked at last year's bill compared to this one. This one is much lengthier. I think the fees were set in the proposed bill last year. I'm not sure that the fees for issuing the registration cards are set in this particular bill. Based on the bill that we reviewed last year, we'd be looking at an operational deficit of about $250,000 the first year and every year thereafter, because the fees would not cover the cost of the operation.
Does that conclude your remarks, Mr. McMillan?
Yeah.
Mr. England.
President Todd, I commend you for taking this on. I said the same thing to Laura Rosenthal Hall last year. I commend you for taking this on. It's interesting that what we sort of activity we condone and other kind that we condemn, because we have methadone clinics where we encourage people to drive there, get their methadone and leave. And the effects of methadone are much worse on someone's motor skills than marijuana, but we encourage them to go there and drive back. But at the same time, this logistically would create a nightmare for law enforcement. Because we're essentially creating another class of citizens that we are, in a sense, protecting what would otherwise be an illegal drug. So my concern would be, as a prosecutor, number one, preventing individuals from driving and confining their usage. We've had a couple situations in Tuscaloosa where I had the unfortunate responsibility of prosecuting someone who had a DUI accident, and they were actually influenced by marijuana. And because they didn't stop at a red light, almost killed somebody. And we had the same situation where an individual, motor skills delayed and so forth, had an accident and killed somebody because they were on marijuana. And that was scientifically proven. But the other end of the situation is we're talking about medicine and helping people. I have to respectfully disagree with my friend Representative Salam when he said, legislative pity pat. I wrote that down. I got to use that.
I got a patent on that. That's trademark violation.
But with marijuana, and we know it, different types of drugs, the way they're administered affects their effectiveness. So they do offer marijuana in medicinal form in a pill, obviously, and you can take that pill, and it has to break down like a pill would in order to help you. But that's not nearly as effective as smoking. It's more effective that way. And I think that's been scientifically proven over and over again. It's been proven so much that people who are opponents of legislation like this say that we don't want people using it because obviously it affects their ability to motor skills and so forth. But when we're talking about medicine and the things that we decide are legal and okay for people to take are actually more harmful than marijuana is, and we don't get any, at the time we don't have any money in our budgets, is there a taxing component of this too in here?
There's a registration fee, and that's something that we're willing to look at over time to offset. It's sure not my intent to, have the Department of Public Health have to incur debt to administer this.
Why don't we consider increasing the amount of the registration fee? And also, Representative Millen brought up, we're going to find a lot of opponents to legislation because it does hamper law enforcement's ability to do what's reasonable law enforcement. Because there's the presumption there that you're legal until the officer somehow demonstrates that you are violating the law, which creates a very serious problem. Because if we start doing that down the line, it'll be almost difficult or impossible to effectively enforce the law as far as drugs are concerned. But I think if we can put this in a posture where we'll remove that presumption, increase the fees, maybe put a little tax on it so the state gets a little bit of money out of it, because right about now we'll take money from anywhere.
Amen.
And I think we'll get closer to getting this passed if we can address some of those law enforcement concerning the money part of it. But again, I support the legislation, but I think if we can get it in a better format, I think we can.